off the light and descend into the pit. Death is merely the threshold. The real horror begins when your eyes shut and there's no way out. I am that darkness from your childhood. Give me your purest fear, for now I am all the shadows that surround you. Come, follow me. Take my hand. I will lead you to the gallows.
What I'm about to share changed my life forever. I was an archaeologist, 50 years old, when I received that damned letter from America. It all began in 1878. I had just completed my studies in Lima when an official correspondence arrived. Authorities in Arica had discovered something extraordinary on Alacran Island. A Chinchorro mummy, but unlike any we had ever seen. This one had been found inside a sarcophagus made of marine stone, something that challenged everything we thought we knew about that ancient civilization. The voyage by ship from Lima was long, but the excitement kept me awake. I knew these mummies were over 5,000 years old. The chance of encountering something new, something undocumented, made my heart pound with anticipation. Very few studies had ever been done on these ancient remains. As the ship neared the port of Arica, the first thing I saw was the thick winter fog. It was June, and the damp cold clung to my skin like a second layer. Through the haze, the massive silhouette of El Morro de Arica rose like a stone colossus, solemnly watching over the bay. I had heard about that rocky promontory all my life, but seeing it emerge from the mist like some ancient apparition filled me with a strange reverence. The port was bustling with activity: fishermen, traders, sailors, all moving about the docks with the urgency of those who live by the sea. I decided to take a moment to explore the city before heading to the island. I walked through the main square, noticing how El Morro loomed over the sea, dominating the entire landscape. There was something about that rock that unsettled me, as if it held secrets that time had long forgotten. An hour later, I returned to the dock, where the local authorities were waiting. Just as we had agreed in our letters, we boarded a small boat that would take us to Alacran Island. The sea was choppy, and as we drifted away from the shore, I felt like I was leaving behind more than just solid ground. The island was smaller than I had expected. The camp was basic, just a few tents surrounding a rectangular structure covered by tops. There were 5 of us in total: 2 Chilean archaeologists, an anthropologist, Luis Sepulveda, colleague from Lima, who had arrived a few days earlier, and me. My name is Jose Martinez. The silence was absolute. It's here, Sepulveda said, pointing toward the top. Prepare yourself, Doctor. This is going to change everything we thought we knew. When they removed the covering, my breath caught in my throat. There it was, a marine stone sarcophagus, perfectly carved, etched with inscriptions I had never seen before. But these weren't conventional hieroglyphs. They were black circles painted with a substance that seemed to absorb light itself, surrounded by markings that defied description. The lines twisted in ways that made your eyes ache if you stared too long. When we finally opened the sarcophagus, what we found left us speechless. There was no mummy, only a thick layer of gray dust ash like that covered the entire stone interior. This makes no sense, said Ricardo, one of the Chilean archaeologists, as he ran his fingers through the dust. The Chinchorro never developed stone sarcophagi. He was right. The very existence of that structure defied everything we thought we knew about their culture. I spent hours studying the inscriptions on the sarcophagus. That first night, I woke up in a panic. Something felt wrong. I looked up, expecting the familiar darkness of the night sky, but what I saw froze the blood in my veins. The sky wasn't black. It was red. A furious, burning red, as if the air itself had caught fire. I sat up and realized I wasn't in my bed anymore.
Go now. Answer the call. For among them all, you are the chosen one. No, these are not nightmares. This is something far older. You must not fear its jaws.
I was floating suspended in the air over the Bay of Arica. But it wasn't the Arica I knew. El Morro was still there. But there was no dock, no port, no city. It was as if I had been thrown thousands of years into the past. What I saw next stole the breath from my lungs. Along the shoreline were human-like figures, but they weren't human. They were elongated, shadows, ghastly humanoid shapes that moved with an unnatural grace. They lit bonfires along the beach, forming what seemed to be a primitive and sinister civilization. I rose toward El Morro in that dream, as if pulled by some invisible force, and at the summit I saw something I'll never forget. A kind of stone ziggurat, and the shadow figures were entering it one by one. In the distance, a volcano was erupting, painting the landscape with an infernal glow. I woke up drenched in cold sweat. It had been a dream, but so vivid. I could still smell the sulfur and feel the heat of the flames. The next day, when I returned to the sarcophagus, I was met with the shock of my life. The dust was gone, completely, as if it had never been there.
Where's the ash?
I asked my colleagues. They all looked at me, confused. No one could explain what had happened. 5 specialists had documented that dust the day before, and now it simply didn't exist. That second night, the dream came again. This time, I was transported to another time altogether. I saw Incan warrior shamans, judging by their appearance fighting those shadowy beings. The shamans wielded flaming maces and spears, but the creatures were vicious. I watched in horror as some of the shamans were possessed, their bodies collapsing from the inside out in grotesque and terrifying ways. But I also saw how some of the shamans managed to capture the shadow, men turning them into dark smoke through ritual. That smoke was sealed inside ceremonial Incan jars. Suddenly, the scene shifted. I saw the warrior shamans entering a temple, located precisely where the city of Arica now stands. They were carrying the sarcophagus and pouring the black smoke of the defeated shadow beings into it. The most chilling part was watching that smoke solidify, turning into the same gray dust we had discovered.
I woke up in a panic.
My heart pounding in my chest. Those weren't just dreams. They were visions, ancestral memories that had somehow seeped into my mind. The next morning, the fog over Arica was so thick, we couldn't see the port. We all had lunch together except for Luis Sepulveda, who had disappeared earlier that morning. When he finally returned, he invited us to explore the Inca's cave, an ancient cavern carved into the slopes of El Morro de Arica. Something about him had changed. He spoke with a strange neutrality, almost expressionless. It unsettled me deeply. It was as if he wasn't fully himself, like something else had taken his place. Just dizziness and fatigue, he said when we asked if he was feeling all right. But that won't stop us from
Enjoying a bit of recreation.
Don't hesitate. Can you feel death closing in? Do you feel its rancid breath crawling through your ears, across the hairs on the back of your neck. Now feel the bliss that calls to you.
The cave was deeper than we expected. Still, we didn't go in too far. As we explored its crevices with lanterns and torches, the afternoon light began to fade into dusk. Shadows danced along the rock walls, and the air grew heavier with each step. Then it happened, out of nowhere. In the middle of casual conversation, Sepulveda made a guttural sound that froze us in place. He dropped his torch and looked at us with a twisted expression, something sinister lurking in his eyes. He stared at us and said,
The offering is made.
Immediately, his body collapsed, but it wasn't a fainting spell. It was as if something inside him had ruptured. He began convulsing, choking on screams, as blood poured from his eyes, nose, and mouth. His body collapsed and died just like I had seen in my dreams. And then, something unspeakable emerged from him. A shadow, coalescing into something vaguely human. A creature with claws, long-limbed, terrific, faceless, and brutally strong. At the top of its head, a gaping, circular maw opened like a grotesque second mouth. The screams of my colleagues filled the cave. The creature lunged at them with feral rage. It tore them apart, ripped them limb from limb while I stood frozen, paralyzed with terror, unable to move a single muscle. I saw that hideous mouth devour Ricardo whole. I saw its claws pierce through the chests of the other archaeologists. I watched their blood mix with the dust on the cave floor. Then the creature turned toward me. It stood before me, and though it had no face or visible mouth, I heard its voice inside my mind.
I am the predecessor. You, my host.
My vision blurred. I felt it invading me, taking over, just like it had done to Sepulveda. But then, like a miracle, I heard human voices. A group of Navy sailors from the port had entered the cave. They shouted in horror at the scene before them, but they didn't flee. They stood their ground, and thanks to their presence, the creature now, in a gaseous, shadow-like form, slithered along the cave walls, retreating into the depths, vanishing in a swirl of black mist. It left behind only the echo of a guttural sound that still haunts my nightmares. I was arrested and brought to Lima. I spent a year in prison with no resolution to the case. The sailors' testimonies from Arica were critical in preventing me from being convicted for the deaths of the archaeological team. But the case was never solved. I managed to negotiate my release thanks to certain connections. Otherwise, I'd still be behind bars. But there was one condition. I had to serve the nation. It's now 1,880. My country is at war with Chile, and I've been assigned to the most dangerous post in this damned conflict, Arica. Now I'm back here, with a detachment of soldiers. We're carrying supplies, and I've been placed under the command of a certain Colonel Bolognesi. I can see El Moro again, rising from the mist like an omen. I pray I make it through this war in one piece. My stomach turns just remembering that creature. I know it's still down there, waiting in the depths of that cave, waiting for the right moment to reclaim whatever it believes is its own. I have this horrible feeling.
War awaits, and you will die in a brutal bath of blood. And after your death, the Man of Shadows will claim you. Remember this.